Hello everyone, welcome to this latest version of the Monday Momentum Sessions where today am going to show you Attio as a CRM, and I'm going to run through it how I would use a CRM like this. So whether or not you're using Pipedrive, HubSpot, Folk CRM, Moxie CRM, or even Attio, I just want to show you how I would be using this as a salesperson and a sales manager or MD, so that we can start to figure out what is the health of our sales pipeline, both our inbound activity and our outbound activity, and we can start using this to really ramp that up and do so in the most efficient manner. So what I want to do today is hop into Attio, which you can see here. I've just set up a test account. It is the CRM that I use today, and I'm going to run through all of the features, and I'm going to give you some understanding of what I use within Attio today. Now, the free version of Attio is pretty good just out of the box, and it would be fine as a solopreneur. It's exactly what I use. However, with the paid functionality, which I'll get into, there is some additional nice things like video recording and call recording, and then sentiment analyzer and things like that. But the reality is that if we just do the basics right, we will already be head and shoulders above what we're currently doing. And I will say that across the board for the majority, of my clients, if we just get the basics and the foundational tier of sales right, you're already doing 1,000,000% more than the majority of agency owners out there. Our goal is to figure out where this is all coming from, where our data is coming from, and then make sure that we're utilizing the tools and systems to the best of its ability. Right, so into Attio then. This is just a standard test account. I just created this, and you get a 14-day free trial, which allows you to test all of the functionality. So do that and see if it works for you. But we're going to start at the top and then just work our way down this list entirely. So the notifications, pretty standard. This will give you a notification of any tasks, activities, follow-ups, sometimes emails in there as well, and you can set your notifications to make sure that that's all working so you're not being bombarded with millions of notifications when you're not relevant. Now, I don't necessarily use notes a lot, but do keep notes if it's something that, if you want to keep everything within a single source of truth, being your CRM, which is a really great way of doing things. I do take all my notes into Apple Notes and do that separately. And then emails. Now, the majority of you guys will be on Office 365 or Google Workspace, and you can completely integrate your email address and your email inbox within Attio. I personally do this, and I manage all of my emails within Attio, and that means then I can set up different activities in there. So I can set up canned responses, default responses. I can set up automations and workflows depending on how people have approached my business, things like that, and we'll get into those in a little second. But you'll see that they can be very, very powerful for your business. Now, this is the calls, and I only saw this yesterday for the first time, and one of my clients had this call intelligence on the go, and it was very good where he was able to hook into his Google Meet. It recorded the call and it put all the transcript and all in here. Now, if you're in Google Workspace, Gemini does this already. It will transcribe the entire call, but having it all within a single function, especially if you're the MD and you want to be able to see the calls of your team, that's really important, where you can go in there, you can review it, and you can provide guidance. And many of you will be clients already that know that I will review your calls. I will get you to record them, and I will absolutely go through those and give you support and guidance on how to make them better. And that is exactly the same process that I would do with my team if I was the sales manager or the MD managing this new sales function in the business. And if you're the only person who's managing the sales function, yes, well, that becomes a lot of self-reflection, but having the recordings in here, you can go through, and certainly we'll be able to work on those as we go, where we're focused on, well, what are we missing that call? What did we do well? What did we not do well? What were the challenges and opportunities the client identified? And did we ask for the business at the end? Plus a load of other things in the middle. But with the calls, we can figure things out. We can certainly look at the insights, and we can take it from there. Now, the reporting, obviously this is a very, very basic account, but if we look at the reporting, you will be able to build out many, many different opportunities within your sales funnel. And if you think about the CRM as only your sales function. That's very important. There are tools out there like Scoro and the original Streamtime where they were end-to-end support for the entire Creative Studio. And I really like those tools because when you put a quote in here and you put your customer data in here, it flows all the way to the end of the service. And once the data is in, it can be utilized across all functionality. That is a big challenge when it comes to a system like this, because when you put your data in here, that's fine, you're getting them through to a sale, but then you have to get your data into ClickUp, which I know a lot of us use for our project management, and there has to be some sort of bridge across. Now, there are Zapier and Make and N8N integrations that will allow you to pull the data across, but that does then mean that you have to map out your service lists, your service levels, what that looks like, so that when you populate a brand or a website development project in your deals here, and that is moved into close one, that the exact same project and all of the subtasks are automatically populated on ClickUp. And we'll do actually a deep dive into that in the coming weeks as well. But right this second, we're only focused on sales, and all of the reports here are tailored to getting you through from initial inquiry or prospecting through to sale in the most efficient manner. And I will talk to you guys about time in stage, I will talk to you about win rate and things like that, and all of this will allow us to utilize the information that's within our system to maximize our sales opportunities. And I'm always looking at the stages of anyone's business of where sales are sitting for the longest time, and we'll get into that in a second within deals. But if we can figure out where the bottlenecks, where the challenges are in your sales process or your sales pipeline, then we'll be in a far better position to reduce the challenges faced there, overcome the objections that customers will have, and then get those sales through to close, win as quickly as possible. Okay, so reporting, go through that. When you have actual data in here, you'll start to see the reports that come across and you'll be able to tailor those to your needs. If we're being really critical, right, and the majority of you haven't got a complete sales function that you would be very happy with leaving it on its own all the time, we need this data right this second so that we can shine a light on the good and equally shine a light on the areas that we can focus on. And the one thing that I will tell you all when it comes to your CRM is that we need to use it first and foremost. And I know that sounds really basic and probably very obvious to all of you, but if you think about this further, right, the best CRM is the one that's used. The best CRM is the one that is up to date. The best CRM is where you live every single day, because the sales in your business as we scale need to be ramped up beyond referrals. We need to be focused on all of our opportunities, or both our inbound leads and our outbound leads, and we need to maximize this function because we need to give ourselves the best opportunity to sell. Because referrals will only take us so far, our current clients will only take us so far. We need to go far beyond that. And so when you start to consider the CRM, whether it's Attio or anything, we need this to become this hub that we are focused on every single day. And many of you will have heard me talk about Xero and how we lived in Xero. But right this second, if growth, if scale, if selling is on your mind, we need to focus on Attio and our CRM. Okay, so the automations and workflows and sequences and workflows. Sequences are email sequences, and some of you will have come through my own onboarding sequence or my own sales sequence, and this is exactly an example of that. When you send an inquiry through my website, you will get an automatic email back saying, "Hello, how are you? Before we have a conversation, I would like you to fill in my pre-discovery call questionnaire." And what that does is that allows me to qualify my customers a little bit. You could have an onboarding or an introductory email that has a little VSL or video or link to your YouTube channel. You could welcome them and thank them for their inquiry. You could do many, many things. And that is just one example of what a sequence could look like. What happens when you onboard a client, when they go from closed one? Well, there could be multiple sequences in there, one for web development, one for design, one for performance marketers. You know, it could be, or one for your new clients if you're running a subscription-based service. There's many different things that you could focus on that a sequence will reduce the reliance on your team just remembering. It will just automate that entire process, and you can absolutely build this once, use it multiple times or forevermore, but refine it as you go. And I find that this level of automation and sequences are very, very easy to manage, and I can guarantee you can find 1 or 2 very, very quick wins in your business where you send an email every single week or on a trigger when something happens, and these would be the perfect example of doing that. Okay, and then workflows are the automations. Now, I will tell you that I'm a big nerd when it comes to automations, but I actually take my automations out of Attio and bring them into N8N. So I don't necessarily use this tool myself. However, there are many reasons why, and ones that I would think of is, okay, if a task is created with a meeting request, then you need to have a calendar created or whatever that would look like. Or if you are running weekly calls or have to send weekly emails to your customers, well then these could all be put in here that they can communicate with your team, or they could build out the system that will serve your needs. Let's have a look at some of these templates, okay? So let's look at sales-led templates for the purpose of this. Okay, perfect. The customer renewal date autofill. What would this mean if you sell a a service on a calendar year? So you want to review their service 12 months from now. Well, then you can allow this to build this out where you will have an automatic reply, or a task created 12 months after a certain service or product is sold. Things like that. Lost deal reason reminder. If deals go to if you go through your stages of your sales pipeline and you don't win the sale in that instance, well, it's very easy for a salesperson to just go, okay, we didn't win it, and not fill in the detail, which we need as owners. Well, what was the reason and the purpose for the sale being lost? Well, ultimately, it was either price, they went with a new other supplier, we didn't give them enough confidence to work with us. We need to know that information so that we can address those as part of our sales process. And the more information we can gather, the better. And I can tell you that salespeople are lazy in the sense that they won't do anything more than they need to. We need to figure this out and how that works. Then, when you win deals, what happens next? I'll put this in here. We move it across to client success, to customer success, to allow them to onboard the client and to bring that into a system elsewhere, which will be our project management system. Now, this here will allow you to bring your sales and your customer success or your client success managers to the same level on the same system. But at that point, then the project is live and it should be moved across to ClickUp. And that's where that integration with N8N, with Make or Zapier is very applicable. And you need to figure out what level of information needs to go across, what level of manual data transfer needs to happen over here, from here, or if any at all. I would be looking at those tasks as absolute automatic tasks that should happen in your business. But the level of investment that you put into that, the level of detail you put into that will depend on the size of your business. Right this second, if you're a solopreneur, it might just be easier to and quicker to just build it out every single time. But very quickly, building it once as an automation or a sequence will be fantastic. And you can add webhooks here, which the likes of ClickUp will pick up on the other side. Cool. Now, favorites, obviously no favorites in this, but now we get into the actual meat and bones of this entire system. And when you're working in a CRM, you always start with the company that you want to work with. Now, I do appreciate that some people that you will work with will be solopreneurs and they will go by their first name. But if you just allow for the fact that even if those people are solopreneurs, they're also part of a company, then we need to figure that out first. So always fill in the details of the company that you want to work with. So let's just add in moveapace.com for the purpose of this. Set the domain. The name is Move Apace. The description, best advisory for agencies who want to scale. Team is, there's nobody been created yet in that team. And then the categories, business advisory. Now your clients will be corporate and business for the purpose of this. So you want to fill in as much of this detail as you can, and a lot of your team will literally turn around and go, yeah, but we're spending all this time on admin. The the purpose of this is that we put in the best information that we have first and foremost, and we can utilize that across the entire business. However, if you put shit in here, you will get shit out the other side, and so there is a little bit of time in building this out at the start, especially when it's new business acquisition, but it is perfect going forward if we do it right first time. Okay, so you can have a look at all of those. There's no deals associated at this time, but we'll chat about that in a second. So once we've created the company, this becomes our master database of all our clients. As you can see in here, I'll just go back into the table view. It will give you all the information across here, and we can then sort, we can view by different categories. We can start to build lists within different segments, so we can target hospitality this month, for example, or we can focus on our major campaigns, and we can only target those clients if we do that. And it will give you their Airbnb, their LinkedIn and whatnot, but it will also, and I think that's just absolutely pulled that from, yep, it's just auto-filled that in for us. The last interaction is the last interaction that we had with that company. So whether it was an email, whether it was a task, whether it was a call that we've recorded in here, those are the things that it will do. And again, there's been no communication because there's no emails in here. And my Twitter is, I don't even know if I have a Twitter, to be honest, at this point. So all of this information is recorded in here. And what we then do is use this as the system for managing all information about that company. Now, I will first and foremost be the first person to say we need to add in team. So let's go in here and add a person within this team. And it's going to be me, create person, Connor McCauley. Email address, Connor at, move up here, finder, and create record. Because that's there now, at this point, I can use this to send an email. If I had the email connected, I can manage all of that. But as you can see, all the way across here, we've got the overview, which is just everything that we've mentioned there before, all of the activity, whether or not there's any information in here that's relevant. If there was multiple team members, that would be in here. The activity that we have had with this customer. So for example, we'll add a meeting for today. Meeting, Connor. Yep, totally fine. Create meeting. And that we'll just add me. Connor. I'm not sure if I can do that because there's only me in the system, but that's okay. You would add the meetings in there so you can record all the data. And this is the thing that you will find with yourself and with your sales team. You will think about this and go, Connor, but that just sounds like duplication of work. And I can tell you that your CRM has to become your second brain, because when you're dealing with 5 clients or 10 clients or 20 clients at the minute, you can genuinely remember a good lot of the information that you need to upfront. But when that's first and foremost 50 clients, 100 clients, I guarantee you that even the smartest of us will start to struggle, in the sense that they will they'll forget things, they'll miss things, they will just data that just evaporates into the world and into the ether. And when it's your team, if it's not in here, it didn't happen. And that's something that we would have said, because your team might want to have a spreadsheet that manages everything, and that's totally fine. But when it goes into here, it's the truth. This is what's happening. If they're talking about their leads and all the rest, unless it's in here, there's no leads. Okay, so your emails will all be recorded in here if you've allowed that. So you can add your emails so that they can be shown, all the emails that you've had with either the company itself or with individual people within the company, which will be in the people side of things. Your calls will be recorded if you have the calls functionality, and I think it's about 55 quid a month per person for that, so it is quite expensive, but if they are, they'll be recorded in here. As I mentioned, all of the team members will be kept in here, so it's easy for you to go and manage them and to see what's happening. Your notes are recorded, your tasks are recorded. So let's create a task here now and just show you what that looks like. Create a task, move a pace at Connor McCauley, so we can link the two of those. Follow up on lead as discussed on LinkedIn, and then set your date being agreed as that, assigned to me, and linked record. You can put it in at a certain time as well if you want. Well, you can't actually, but same day. Cool. What will happen then is that task will be added here, but will also be added up in here in your tasks. And this is where I go in every single morning and I look at all the tasks that are due today, and they are a priority action. If I'm spending and dedicating time on sales, which we all are, then I will go in here and I will make sure that those tasks are followed up on. Now, you can set automations as to create a task to remind you to follow up on deals and all the rest, or you can just create a task as you create them, and that's what I do. And we'll go into people just to see the exact same process here. As you can see, the titles along the top are relevant. So it's the communication strength. Nobody's communicated with Connor, so there's 0. And there's no email interaction and last calendar interaction. There's nothing there. But this gives you a really good understanding of when people were being spoken to and when not. So a lot of clients that I work with, we talk about reactivation of old clients. And with a system like this, it's really easy then to see who's falling through the cracks. What would we have done? If somebody hadn't been spoken to in 3 months or 6 months, they would have gone into a list, and we'd have created a list of reactivation clients. Or now there's very specific reasons why you won't speak to some clients in extended periods, and there will be some people within companies that you will only speak to on an annual or even just one-off times. So those lists have to be curated and they have to be managed, and certainly they will have to be focus of the sales team or the client success managers team to ensure that everybody who needs to be spoken to on a regular basis that's happening. But this list then, this is your database, and you can import from elsewhere, and you can bring in your own list, and all of that will be in here. As I mentioned all the times, we need a single source of truth for all of our sales function, and that's where a CRM like this becomes golden for everyone. And it all comes down to deals. Okay, so these are the deals that we are focused on. Now this is your sales pipeline. Okay, and this is specifically for those deals that are at quoting stage. So this doesn't happen until they're at quoting stage, in my opinion. Now, some people will change this and make this their entire sales pipeline from prospecting all the way through. But I want to keep these deals and this section pretty clear so that we can see the true value of our sales pipeline, and we can start to track that a whole lot better and keep this just really clean. Okay, so that lead comes in, which would be, we've had a meeting, we've done a proposal, and here's the proposal value here. Now you can change this to euros and GBP as well. You can set all of the values in here to be linked to either the salesperson that's added this or the person who's receiving it on the other end, which would be me in this instance. There's many values that you can add. Let me just show you view settings. I think it's in. You can add all these new cards. So your record ID, if you have a specific record that you want to then connect it with ClickUp on the other side, or you have a project management or file management system. Your deal name, which I'll have this in as, we've got it as test lead, which is the same as here, so we can remove that actually. But for example, if this was, let's call it design of website. Design of website and brand. Okay, so what I can do then is I'm just going to back out of this and then click on the value, and the value could be 14 grand, let's say 14,000. Okay, now what you can also do is set notes in here. Do you know what? Let's just create a brand new deal from scratch. Create a new deal, deal name, design of website and brand. It's at the lead stage, which is our lead here, and deal owner is going to be me. Deal value, we'll call it 15 grand. It's gone up in the last 5 seconds. Associated people will be Connor from Move at Pace. Yep, there we go, because he's the only person in the company. Associated company, again, it will be Move at Pace in this instance. Move at Pace. And then we'll create that record. Now that's created a lead here, 15 grand. The value is being shown up above, so we can remove this out of there, and we can set these view settings to be whatever we want. So deal value, let's remove deal value. No, that's right. Not sure, need to figure that out. All good in tests. But what we're doing then is we're then making sure that we have our process. So let's click on this, the design of. We're making sure that we're following our process. So what happens when we create this deal in the system? The first thing that we would do when we're creating a lead is that we make sure that the lead is connected to a proposal that we have sent. So what does that proposal look like? Many of you will use PDFs, some of you are using Pitch or Better Proposals. And what I want to do then is I would have the actual link to the proposal in here. So this is the proposal details, and I will have create a template, just blank. I'm just trying to, no, I don't want to do that. Create note. I'm not really sure what I've done. All I wanted to do was to add the link in there and just, why isn't it start typing? Here it is, sorry me. Silly me. Okay, so the link to Better Proposals or pitch.io. And that means that there's a record of that link in here for us. And we would be able to click on that and go through to that. But what we then want to do is make sure that that has been sent to the customer. Now, what does your proposal look like? Does it look like that you send them a proposal and you follow up with a secondary meeting? Well, if so, then we need to bring that into our sales pipeline. Or, so we could make that in here. Let's just add a new pipeline view. Here we go. So it's going to be a proposal presentation. And what would happen then is once we've communicated this to the customer, we could set up a little automation workflow that when that has been sent, we get a notification or a task that we need to set up this, and it just reminds us, or this moves automatically across. But for the purpose of this, we're going to manually do this. I actually manually do this myself. So I have created that proposal. I have ensured that I have sent it to the client, both either as a email in here or via Better Proposals, because I know that sends automatically, and that we have agreed that we're going to follow up and we're going to set a message or meeting for the presentation. And that has moved from one step of the sales pipeline through to the second, and our goal is always to get it across to this one stage. Okay, so in progress, does there need to be a follow-up? Let's call that follow-up proposal. And all you're doing here is making sure that these titles or stages of your sales pipeline are exactly aligned with your actual sales process. So what happens when you present, or what happens when you go through to quote opportunity? Do you have a meeting first, which is just your lead? Then you provide a proposal or presentation. Then we follow up. We have to make sure that our sales team are actually following up, because I can't tell you how many times have I had sales teams not follow up on our agreed schedule. When a quote is sent, we will follow up in 24 hours and ask them if they'd like to proceed, or we will do so on the schedule that we've agreed with the client, because that will sometimes change. And what happens is then we move our team are all our deals all across, and each of the sales guys will manage all of these themselves until such time that we either go to won or lost. Lost, we need to have a trigger that will tell us what has happened. And as you've seen before in the workflows, you can actually build this out so that that will request the information. And I am sure somewhere in here you'll be able to add the note in to explain what has happened when the sale has lost. Now, would we add this to a list? Yes, this could be something that could be a list that we could follow up on all lost sales after 30 days and just see how things are sitting, or if anything, the situation has changed. We could build out this list of just whatever we want. And lists are how you're going to manage all of the different activity in your business. So it could be by sector, it could be by clients, it could be by inbound sales or prospecting sales that you're focused on, outbound activities. It could be many, many things. But our goal along all of this process is to get everything into this one situation. because that's when we are able to move this into a live project. Now you'll see these little calculations along the bottom, and these are just the sum. So let's see the sum of the deal value. What does this actually mean then? Well, we can add weighting at each of these stages at a certain point in time in the future of, well, how many of those sales at each of those stages are likely to present themselves as a one sale. And this will then help us to determine what our overall sales pipeline actually looks like. Because if you're sitting here with £1,000 of sales in this column, or leads in this column, and our target per month is 100k, well, you're never going to be able to achieve that. And if we're sitting in here with 200 grand of leads at any of these stages, and our target's 100 grand, well, then we need to win half of those sales to achieve our goals. And I just break that down. That's called the win rate. And I try to focus on that a lot, because that's a real simple metric of us determining, well, how many sales do we need in our sales pipeline, or how many leads in our sales pipeline, and of what value, before we can then use that as a good metric to determine how close we're going to be to our target. Now, some of my clients, most of my clients actually now, are focused on retainer business. Okay, so there's a massive approach of having a retained client over many months. And the question that I get asked a lot by them is this value here: do we make that the total value of that client sale, which could be 5 grand a month by 12, so 60 grand a year, or do we break that down into monthly revenue? And I personally just break it down into monthly, because there will be a little note in the system to say that that's the retainer client. Obviously the deal will reflect that, but we're trying to achieve a monthly target. And when we're breaking our sales down in that manner, well, when we look at our sales CRM and we're targeting ourselves per month, well, then it makes it really easy for us to check and see where we are in any given month. Now, when it's a project like a website or a brand or a strategic document, well, then I would still have the value of that entire project in there as well. And we will then just break the milestones down in the project management system, and we will acknowledge those in the likes of float or in our cash flow forecast, which if you've done the course, the sales course, you will have seen that already. But if you're not sure about your cash flow forecasting, just give me a shout and we will chat about that further. But the goal of this is to get as many leads in here, to win as many of those leads first and foremost, and to get more of them in here and to get them over across into this one section. Now, I can't stress enough, the better data that you put in here, the better your sales process will be, because the more information that we can use to our benefit, then we will be able to sell more effectively. Now, in our businesses as agencies, generally speaking, we have two levels of activity, or two sides to our sales activity. We have our inbound activity that comes our way, so people like referrals or people who've liked or filled in our forms on our websites, but also we need to consider our outbound activity. And if I'm being completely honest, the majority of businesses that I have ever worked with don't focus enough on their outbound activity and don't do enough early on, so that can be a massive part of their sales strategy. And there's no problem with that, first and foremost, because many of you are very, very successful with the inbound leads and the referrals that you get. But some point in the future, those leads are not going to be at the level that we would expect for our growth opportunities. And so there needs to be a marriage or a mixture of both inbound and outbound activity in all of our businesses. Now, I do know many businesses who are very, very, very successful on just their inbound activity, but we're still putting outbound processes in place to ensure that scale and that growth just happens naturally at that point. So these processes, or these lists, your prospecting lists, are slightly different, because you need to then build these out exactly based on your process. Now, if you're like me, I think of my outbound prospecting as many series of individual touch points until somebody's at the point where they stick their hand up and say, yep, do you know what? I'm interested in your service. Now's the right time for my business to come and have a chat with you. And I like that approach to selling because it's nice and simple, really, really soft, the right person at the right time when they have a need for our service. You'll hear that from me quite a bit. And so, but conversely, there's a process to everything. Nothing in my whole process is left to chance. So what I want you to do is to map out what your outbound prospecting activities could look like. So the first thing is, your prospecting list. Who do we want to work with? You need to add the companies into this massive list, the never-ending list of ideal clients. And I would have said to you, many of you last week on Monday's call, to fill out your database with 20 prospects. I would 100% want you to have 100 prospects or 1,000 prospects over the course of the next 12 months. And all we're going to do there at this very early stage is add the company name, because we don't know who the customer is or the right person in the business, but the company name of the people, the organizations that you want to work with. And then your goal is to start building and populating that database of, well, who is the right contact? Well, how do we find that out? Mostly LinkedIn. Okay, well, when we find out the contact, we'll add them in here, and then, we'll move them into this next phase. So, for example, could this be add contact on LinkedIn? Of course. Then what happens next? Well, we might send them a message, we might ask them for a coffee, we might have a meeting. Okay, well, if that is this next stage, now, would I add in my marketing activity at this point? Maybe. So if I had a task that the salesperson had to manage, so for example, would I add in like sending them a brochure, for example, into my stages of my sales pipeline? Probably, because I just want to remove the risk of our sales team just freestyling, and I want to make sure that that's automated and processed as much as possible. So when they're added on LinkedIn, what do? Well, you will have a social selling guide in your business. What do you do with those clients that you want to work with? Well, you'll add relevant content in their market sector. You'll focus on those activities that will communicate with them lightly. So you maybe like their posts, you'll comment where it's relevant under their posts, and you'll probably send them a little DM over time. Never pitch slap them, but just send them a little DM that might prompt them to have a conversation or a meeting. And I do this quite a bit. In fact, many of you as clients will have received a DM from me that says, look, I've been following you from some time. I love what you're doing. This is my background. This is what I do. Here's the service that I offer. Would you be interested in a coffee? Very, very light touch. And, even still, as somebody who has done this for many, many years, my win rate is just like that all the time. Sometimes people will reply. Some people, they don't. Some people just don't even message me back ever. Well, then I take it to email. There's all these things that you will do to figure out how you can get your clients to respond, or potential clients to respond. And we just need to make sure that we've ticked off all the boxes, because you will you will very rarely get somebody who will go from this prospecting stage all the way through to sale in one swoop. We need to have multiple touch points and multiple opportunities where we can communicate to these prospective companies and these prospective clients, and make sure that they understand our service, understand what we sell, understand what we do, how we can benefit them, and that we've removed all of the objections long before we even get to this meeting part. And that's what your activity needs to do. Now, this process can be as extensive as you want, and there is merit in the early stages of your process of just documenting everything out until it becomes commonplace in the business. Personally, what I do is I'll build my prospecting list. Then I will add the people on LinkedIn. I will post very relevant content. All of my content should resonate to my ICP, my ideal client persona, which all of you are who are watching this, and they are agency owners who are scaling their business. They're between 50 grand per month and 200 grand per month revenue. They're focused on scale. They've either had a material change in their business, they're focused on growth, and possibly exit. There's many reasons why somebody would be interested in working with me, and all of my content should be positioned in that. Then I will make sure that I am checking out their content regularly to see if there's anything that's relevant. Most of the clients that I work with post their creative, and if it's good, only if it's good, will I comment on that. If it's something that I actually believe in, I will comment on that. And over time, maybe 3, 4 weeks, 5 weeks after that, when this cycle has been happening, I will then send them a little DM. And that DM is what I've mentioned. Like, I love your work. Here's who I am, what I do. Would you be interested in a coffee? And if they don't reply to that, I do Go and find their email address if possible. Many of them will have their email addresses on their website, on their LinkedIn, and I'll just follow up on a little message, an email, just say, look here, I did follow, I'll send you a message on LinkedIn. I don't know if you're too active on there, because most people, aren't as active as I would be, and I'd love to get a coffee with you if it's suitable. And here's what I do again, and maybe a bit of background about myself. And if you have a PDF or anything that you want to send, or a pitch deck that you want to send that's relevant in that instance, or you want to do a bit of value added, well then send that across too. But at that point, our goal is just to get people to communicate with us. All we want to do is to get them into our ecosystem of conversation, because they will have either a preconceived notion of who you are, they will have no understanding of who you are, or they've been warmed up over all of this period where they've an idea that they might want to be able to work with you. But our goal is just to educate at this early stage. And the goal is to get them to the meeting. Now, I talk about the meetings an awful lot with my clients, because that is where we get to look at the opportunities, we get to look at the objections and the challenges that they will face and they will have about our service, and we get to address them head on. That is your primary opportunity to address things and to move people into sale. So these are the stages that you need to focus on initially. Make this far and wide, start getting them into your own ecosystem, follow up with them, make sure that you're following your own process properly, get the meeting, get them into proposal stage. Negotiation, what's that? It should just be cut and dried at that point, but I appreciate that there is some tug of war and arm wrestles with clients on some time. Then we'll move them into paused if they sit for 14 days or 20 days or whatever that is, because the client's not ready to move forward or something else has happened. And the goal, as always, is to get them into this won or lost stage, well, preferably the one. And all you want to do then is make sure that all of the touch points that you have, all of the communication that you have, everything that happens in your process is documented in here. Because if it's not in here, it didn't happen. Now, when it comes to the inbound leads, this is usually a little bit easier, because somebody has come to you on your terms. They have seen your website, they have an idea of what you sell, they've been referred. There's always, it's an easier, well, I wouldn't say an easier sell, but it should be an easier sell. And so this process means you don't necessarily have to have the same level of touch points or stages in your sales pipeline, but you can't just expect somebody to come on board. And so what I would probably do is have a look at this as well. So what happens then when somebody lead comes, an inbound lead? Okay. Do we send out a discovery call questionnaire? Do we send them out a meeting link or a cal link so that they can book a time that suits them? Do we need to send them any information, a video sales letter where it tells them exactly who we are, so that when they come on that call, they are completely prepped and ready for what we need to do? Do we need to get any information from them or prepare them that we will ask some questions? The more you can educate your customer at this early stage, easier it's going to be to move through those steps. So, Mr. Customer, what's going to happen next is you're going to receive an email from me that's going to have a questionnaire on it, and in that questionnaire, I would like you to fill that in. That'll help me to prepare for our meeting and to make sure that I address any of the questions that you have so we don't forget about them. Something really, really simple like that. If you want to tell me what your website was built on, what your expectations are of the project, what your ambitions are for the project, and if you have any budget. They're never going to give us a budget, but at least we're going to ask multiple times. Okay, then you'll qualify them. What happens in qualification? Well, you'll hop on a quick call first and foremost, if that suits your business structure. Some of my clients just go straight into a big meeting, which is what I would have done, and others, they will get their salesperson to hop on a call to understand all of those things that we've just talked about in that discovery questionnaire, and then to bring that back to the team and decide who in the team from a technical or creative standpoint needs to come and join a proper meeting. Because we've all been in pitches where we've had the creative director, the designers, the sales team, and me as the MD, and the guys or person on the other side of the table turn around at the end and go, oh, $5,000 for brand, that's well above our budget, we were expecting £1,000. That was a complete waste of all of our resources. So we would probably want that qualification section to make sure that we're not wasting our resources as we scale. Then it's all the way across in this. We get the meeting, we do the tug of war, we do the handshake, we do the objection handling, we get them into proposal, get them in there, of course. And then at that point, when does this move into a deal? Well, question is a good one. At this point, when it comes to proposal, would I put it into deals? No. I put it in beforehand. When we're setting up that meeting, I would probably put them into deals so that we can manage that separately. Other people I know manage their sales pipeline in here separately, but I believe that it's best practice within Attio that all of the live deals, when a quote is created or a meeting is created, are put into deals itself. What do? I do it in deals. That's exactly what I do. And again, it can be duplication, but if you imagine that you have 15 salespeople, 10 salespeople, 5 salespeople, all populating all of their leads in here, this will start to get very messy, very busy, very, very quickly. And so we need to ensure that this deals list is as clean as possible, because this is the health on the pipeline of your entire business. And if this was done, like I've had one sales guy in the past where he had, what was it? I think it was about 250 grand of live deals in the system. And when we broke that down and we removed all of the crap that was in there, we removed all of the historic ones that he just hadn't closed off, in reality, it was less than about 10 grand of prospective sales. And as you can imagine, when we were doing our data review and we were going, okay, there's 400k of sales expected in our percentage of that, we knew that we were on target. And then when those didn't materialize, we were questioning why. And it was so that data that we have, and having this database as clean as possible, is critical to the success of our sales function. So in here in the lists would be everything up until we're ready and confident enough to put it into this lead here. So when we've got that meeting in here, and we've had that, and excuse me, let me just go back. When we've got the meeting and we've done that and we're ready to move them into proposal, then we do that in here, but also then create the deal in here. And when you start to do this, and you do this every single day, and your team are doing this every single day, it will become just second nature that you will spend your time in here. Because if we're being completely honest, this is where the revenue is in your business, the future revenue. Now, what happens currently in your business with sales? Ask yourself that. What happens when somebody sends an inquiry in and you're doing a proposal, or you just go back to them an email, load it in? Where does that data get housed at the minute? Most of the time, it's in the account manager's head or in their emails. And I can't tell you enough how often I've seen jobs being missed with billing because they've not gone through a proper process. And so you cannot load anything into a project management system like ClickUp or Teamwork or Monday.com until it has been built out into your quoting system. And that would be a massive rule that I would start whenever you start to build out your activity within a CRM. Cool. I think that's enough for this process right now. If you have any questions, if you're starting to implement your CRM, if you want to go through this further and build it out with me, drop me a message. We'll set up a quick call. We'll figure out the process, the stages of your pipeline for your business, and we will take it from there. Brilliant. Have a great day, guys. Have a great week, and chat to you all soon.